Today's talk is entitled Music and the Art of Deep Listening, to be delivered by Christy Martin and Aodh Tuama. Touring in the U.S. and Ireland since 1997, 4 Shillings Short are international folk artists who perform over 100 concerts a year, have released 13 recordings, and live as full-time troubadours. They travel from town to town, performing at music festivals, theaters and performing arts centers, folk societies, libraries, house concerts, and schools. It gives me great pleasure and a personal joy as well from my heart to introduce Christy and Aodh, 4 Shillings Short.
Thank you. And the tune that accompanied that song, Anam Cara, was called The Women of Ireland.
Manana Herring.
Manana Herring.
Yeah, traditional Irish. Actually composed by Shauna Rhea. Yeah, awesome. Music and the art of deep listening. They're so connected. Even before we're born into this world of light and form, we hear the music of our mother's heartbeat. That ancient resonance of the human drum. It soothes, it comforts, it brings us into almost a type of unity, a musical unity with our mother, with another human being, even before we're born. That oneness, that belonging is there in our hearts in the form of that beat. As we emerge into the world of senses, awakening, listening, drinking in the creation around us, we begin to see the distinction between hearing and listening. Let's explore this connection together. One of our greatest needs, of the human need, is to be listened to and to really feel that you're heard. From our infancy and throughout our development as people, as human beings, we learn to communicate. We learn to respond to our environment. We do this through many different ways: vocalizations, words, growing into poetry, music, art. All of this is at the core of being human. The child coos when it's content, it giggles when it's happy, it delights, it cries when it's hungry or in pain. Needing attention, needing to feel secure. As babies, we already get that. We're born knowing how to communicate in that fundamental way. And then as we grow, we learn this language of communication and how to articulate what we need through words, through spoken and unspoken messages, body language. There's that almost instinctive understanding when we're heard and when we're not heard. When we feel heard, how does that feel? I'm validated. Somebody cares. I'm meaningful. Who I am matters. It's so important to be heard. And we all know the damage of what it feels like to not be heard. To feel unimportant, invalidated, not loved, ignored, marginalized. It seems to be something that has penetrated so completely in our society these days that it's a glaring problem in almost every country. People are not feeling heard, they're not feeling validated, they're feeling marginalized. And what happens when that occurs on a global level is where we find ourselves today, politically, where we find ourselves today in an environment of anxiety, of fear. It seems to be at the core of what's going on. How can music make a difference in all this? How can we come back to a place where we listen, where we feel heard, where we recognize people who don't feel heard, and how we can heal that?
The reasons for feeling unheard and not listened to are numerous. I grew up in a very academic household. My father was a professor of the Irish language and literature, and precision of language was demanded at the dinner table with 5 boys and a father. So we all kind of tried to choose our words very carefully. And the thing is, we've all encountered people who are totally clumsy with language and cannot articulate themselves. They can't articulate what they mean to say. And so what they say goes unheard. And then there's language and cultural differences, of course, as well. Person listening may not be able to respond to our needs in ways that make us feel validated or understood. They may not know how to respond to our needs. They may not have the communication tools. They may have their own issues or wounds that leave them prejudiced about what they're hearing. They may be preoccupied, impatient, biased. They may not be interested at all. And then, of course, they may solve your problem after the first 3 words are out of your mouth. And that is counterproductive, let's put it that way. The importance of music in our early development, as we all have seen from studies, music, when you play music to a child in the womb, there's a lot of studies that say the child's intelligence and brain synapses work a lot better when they're listening to music all the time. We were talking to Randy last night about playing for plants.
Yeah, if you ever saw that movie, The Secret Life of Plants, that was way back in the early 80s. It was science, but the plants that were played beautiful music thrived. And, there's other kinds of music that's more like noise,
Well,
and then also
let's not get started on rap music.
Just noise,
But music can negatively or positively impact a fetus, including brain development, emotional development, and sleep and eating habits. And that is sort of well-known scientifically researched. It can regulate emotions, it can reduce anxiety, and babies develop a sense of social and emotional connection. They tend to sleep better with music. Hearing and their communication skills.
Attention span.
When I was studying music
things.
at secondary school, we were taught how to listen to a piece of music, and it takes training to do that. So you have to quiet the mind, you have to listen and try and understand the structure of what you're hearing, the themes, the thematic material that comes and goes. You try and interpret what feelings the music invokes in you. And then you learn to articulate and write down how the music composition flowed, developed, changed, and you try to find the words to develop, to express the emotions that the music evoked.
So, for fun, we're going to do a little music meditation and just be there with that piece. It's just an open, flowing piece with a Native American flute and a drum. So relax, close your eyes. Like the drumbeat of the mother's heart. There's a difference between listening, hearing, and actively listening, actively participating in a conversation. When I was in college in Santa Barbara, the University Crisis Hotline was looking for volunteers, and a bunch of us students volunteered to answer the phones. And as part of that training, we had a therapist come in and work with us so that we could answer those phones and really be present to listen. We were taught various skills that were necessary. Besides being present, we had to learn how to reflect what we were hearing. Because, when somebody's talking to you, sometimes you need to clarify by reflecting back what you hear. It sounds like you're feeling a little bit unsettled about that. Can you go a little bit more deeper into that? This kind of way of helping another person who's communicating with you to even go deeper. It tells them that you really are listening. Asking those open-ended questions. It's a skill, but it actually takes a lot to be that present. With all the devices that we have distracting us, it's a great practice when somebody is talking to you to actually not have your cell phone in your hand. There's these little things, paying attention to the tone of the voice. Somebody can be saying, "Oh yeah, I'm doing fine, no problem. Yeah." And inside, if you're listening, you can say, "Something's really bugging you." It's like we pick these things up, but that is only when we're present, where we pick up those cues, the voice, the body language. All of these, listening to understand rather than listening to respond. It's really tough. At 22, I could not believe that I had been listening my whole life, but actually not hearing anything. It really, and it's a constantly important thing to remember that that's what we want. If we don't give it, it's going to be pretty hard to receive it, because you're not modeling what you want, and yet sometimes you feel that, well, if they're not going to listen to me, I'm not going to listen to them. It's not a competition. It's one of the greatest gifts we can actually give each other. So simple and yet so difficult. Especially if it's somebody that you love, but also have an opinion about what you would rather they do or say. To be able to set that judgment aside and look at the person fresh, even if they hurt you yesterday with something they said. To be able to every day clear the slate and give them a second chance. That's what we all want. We all make mistakes. And yet to be able to offer that gift of unconditional love and acceptance through just listening. It's not just listening. It's really holding that person in respect, holding them in a place that you want to elevate them, validate them. It's such an important skill in how music can help us become better listeners. There's a really amazing connection between the two because music is so natural to all of us. To realize that by sitting in and really being with a piece of music, you're expanding your ability to be a better human being. We take music for granted, and yet it's essential to our health. It's essential to our development. And it's essential to nourishing ourselves at a time when the world really, really needs us to show up. As Unitarians, with the mission, the commitment to social justice, the commitment to making the world a better place in every action, in every interaction, this might be the time where we give ourselves a chance to open up our ability to hear and to listen.
While active listening focuses on attentively hearing and understanding the words of the speaker, deep listening goes beyond that to grasp the deeper meaning, emotions, and unspoken aspect of a message, their underlying feelings and context, not just the surface words, but the subtext of the words chosen. It all comes down to intent. It's one thing to be fully present to the other person. It's another thing to go the extra mile and seek to understand them truly. Now, this is an aside, but I grew up listening to a lot of traditional Irish music, a lot of Renaissance Baroque music. Bach was my savior, Sibelius and Beethoven and Brahms and all this. And then I started, the 60s hit, and I started listening a bit to the Beatles. I could hardly understand their words, but I loved their melodies, And that's my problem with most music, is that I love the melodies if they're imaginative melodies, but I have a hard time understanding the words unless they're well articulated and well mixed in the recording and all this kind of thing. And of course, don't start me on rap, because whatever, there's no melody. I like melody. I'm a melody person. So melody communicates with me. Music communicates with me on a melodic. And then if the words are truly well written, then the words communicate the message to me. I think that's why we grew up in Ireland listening to Leonard Cohen and in the 60s, and his words were poetic. That's why there's so many songwriters and poets out of Ireland, because language is so revered and treasured. So that's the thing. We listen deeply to the words. But a lot of times we're so immersed that we don't go there anymore. We don't give people the value of listening actively to their words.
So the takeaway for me in particular is that there are a lot of people who may think differently in terms of politics and religion and values, but it doesn't mean that they're not worthy of our love, worthy of kindness, of listening. We can, I believe, heal what's going on, one person at a time, one interaction at a time. It takes a lot to do that, though, and that requires us to take care of ourselves on a much more deeply spiritual level on a daily basis. To give yourself the time. If it's listening to a beautiful piece of music, taking a walk, journaling, meditating, hiking, whatever, art, making music, beauty. It is essential for all of us to realize that if we are going to go out and make a difference and heal what's going on, we have to also heal inside and give ourselves that support and give it to each other. This is a beautiful community of people. We're so grateful that we've come here so many times to be with you. And even though you're a small group of people, the impact that you can make every single day at the grocery store, wherever it is, turning around and saying hello and really meaning it. How are you today? You know, it makes a difference in the world, like a drop in a pond. The circles go out, and that vibration of love and care and listening can actually heal on a level that we have no idea how magnificent and huge it can be. So the takeaway is listen, open your heart, practice it, give it a go. And see how it does make a difference with those people in your life that you feel alienated from. We all have family members or friends that we don't talk to anymore because we're afraid. By being brave enough to listen, to take that step, you're extending the hand of friendship and love to people who don't feel heard. It's a gesture of peace. How do we do that? How do we make peace in the world? We do it through our own example.
And through music.
And music.
Remember to react to a comment earlier, a quote from the back of our van and our bumper sticker song, "We were all immigrants once."
There you are. Yeah. So that's our talk. Thank you.